Hi, my name is Nekola-Lewis, and my presentation's over texting and driving in the state of Nebraska. So why did I choose the issue of texting and driving? Well, Nebraska is one of 3 states in the United States that have texting texting and driving as a secondary law, which means that officers cannot pull you over for just texting. They have to pull you over for reckless driving or another offense for you to get a ticket. Also, I have in the past texting and driving, but I have now, after learning everything, have changed the way I drive now. What is my personal connection? So yes, I have texted and drove in the past. I changed my ways after learning that in 2014 there were over 4,000 accidents related to texting and driving, and 12 of them led to death. Nebraska averages over 3,600 accidents from distracted driving each year. Those stats alone made me rethink the whole texting and driving. So the first one I'm going to talk about is effective communicator. So my first experience is when I was working with a patient who only spoke Spanish, and I was working with a nurse, and they were butting heads because they could not understand each other. So what I did is I came in to de-escalate the situation, and I had my phone to use Google Translate so that each of them can communicate with each other, and they weren't getting aggravated with each other. At the end, they were able to communicate what they needed to communicate. What I learned about being an effective communicator. I learned that I need to use Spanish and other languages when it comes to communicating with others, because Nebraska has plenty of people that language is not their primary language. So I need to be able to communicate with those individuals, especially in nursing, to better help them with their care. How can I use this to address my issue? I can come up with brochures in different languages to provide to the public about why texting and driving is not a good thing. I can put the stats in different languages. I can come up with the programs that help with putting phones down when driving, so that way every person in the state of Nebraska can be able to learn about texting while driving. Experience number 2. I was working on the cardiac floor on Methodist one of my clinicals. I was working with a patient who was admitted for AFib and a heart rate of, I believe, in the 140s, and the doctor ordered ditalazine IV to help lower the heart rate and to kick him out of AFib. Well, once we administered the med, I noticed some few changes in the patient. He was sweating, he was really pale, he had some labored breathing. I mentioned this to the nurse, and then we did a quick look and we noticed that his heart rate went to 30s. So what we did was called a rapid response team, or RRT, and we helped him. We stopped the medication, which then, once we stopped it, he kind of returned himself back into, I think, a heart rate of like the 60s, I believe. What I learned from being an effective communicator is to use appropriate oral and nonverbal skills in various contexts. What that means is I saw the nonverbal cues from the patient, and I effectively communicated them to my nurse so that we could help him from becoming more ill from the medicine we were giving him. How can I use what I learned about being an effective communicator to address my issues? I can use those oral and nonverbal skills to help persuade others to come help prevent texting and driving in the state of Nebraska and help change the law of making it primary offense when texting and driving. Okay, the next one is reflective individual. So the first experience is I was working with a patient who was incontinent, and they started getting really sore in their leg, in between the legs, and it was really red and was really uncomfortable for the patient. So me and the nurse had to come up with ways to prevent it from getting further and just to stop it and help it heal. So we came up with changing them every 2 hours, putting barrier cream on to protect the skin and to help it heal, and turning the patient every 2 hours. What I learned from being a reflective individual is that I need to use the logic, critical thinking that I've learned in school to help provide the proper care I need for my patients. How can I use what I learned about being a reflective individual to address my issues? I need to use my critical thinking and logic to help those organizations that are their main mission is to stop texting and driving, and help those organizations help change the laws that Nebraska has. My second experience is I was taking care of a patient who had an anoxic brain injury. They were fine all night till about 3 a.m. and they their injury made them become some combative and violent with fellow staff members and myself. And so when I was in there, I was trying to protect myself. Well, I was using the holds that I used that when this class we took, that deals with aggressive patients. And what happened was when I was doing my hold, the patient fell and got hurt as a result of it. Well, what I learned about being an effective individual is knowing that the knowledge that I have is beneficial to others, as in that I use the knowledge I got from that class and I applied it and took responsibility of my actions that I took, even though it led to an injury from the patient. But I used the skills I was taught to protect me and others. How can I use what I learned from being a reflective individual to address my issue? I need to learn to take some ownership. The fact that I was texting, I had in the past texted and drove, but now I can use. I could say yes, I texted and drove in the past, but now I'm going to change my ways and help promote to others to not text while driving. Next is an educated citizen, agent. So, I went to a friend's hometown with her to see her family during a spring break one year. And I noticed when we got there and we talked to her dad that he was complaining of all these symptoms, like he was thirsty, gaining weight, he was peeing a lot, always hungry. And from school, I remember learning all the symptoms of diabetes. And so I mentioned to him, maybe you should get this checked out because it could mean diabetes, but you probably should know that now rather than later. So he went to the doctor. Turns out I was correct. He had diabetes, type 2. So he was very grateful for that he wanted me to come up with a brochure that was easy for the whole town to know the symptoms of diabetes, so that if that would happen to them, that they could get it checked out. What I learned from this situation is that gathering information and relaying it to others helps them to change the way they perceive things. How can I use this, what I learned as a change agent, to address my issue? If I gathering up all the information that I've learned from texting and driving and putting it in an easy, readable, and understandable document and help spread it around, might help stop the rise of texting and driving in the state of Nebraska. So that's my hope. My second experience is, so at my job we have these things called charge cards, which on all of our stock items we have a sticker on it that we put on the charge card, so it helps charge the patient for the item to use. Well, there was a lot of times that people were not putting the stickers correctly on the charge card, so we had a meeting to figure out how we could fix this. Well, my my goal, or my solution for this problem was to move the charge cards closer to the door, so when people walk in, it's the first thing they see, and they can take the sticker off and place it right on the charge card. What I learned in this situation is that we need to come up with ways to help promote that change. We have to take appropriate initiative to affect that change. So I can use that when it comes to what I learned to my training is coming up with ways to help others to promote that change. So in my project, I said maybe come up with mock crashes in high school students to help show them what happens when they text and driving, and see the aftermaths of that. I also say have more billboards to show others the statistical side of texting and driving. So coming up with those coming up with those ways to help promote the change is super beneficial when it comes to addressing my issue. All three of those topics are going to be super beneficial when it comes to my future nursing career, because I'm going to have to use the critical thinking from being an effective individual when it comes to taking care of my patients, because not all patients are the same. And also effective communicator, because I'm going to have to communicate with my fellow nurses, my supervisors, fellow doctors. So having that great communication is going to be key and necessary. And then change agent. The medical field changes all the time. So being able to adapt to change and promoting new change to further the medical field and further medical care is also very important. References. Thank you.